TED Talks. We've all looked for inspiration in these TED Talks, and perhaps we've all looked for a brief respite from our grading or maybe our everyday proceedings from classes, just to be inspired by someone else somewhat far away from our everyday lives. The goal of this afternoon's activity is to show that that inspiration perhaps doesn't live as far away as we think, and in fact comes from within our own Association of Independent Schools. And so today we have a group of teachers, administrators, and students from VAS schools who are going to present to you our very own VED Talks. And the first person I'd like to welcome to the stage is a senior at Flint Hill School. He's been there all 13 years. He's a lifer. And he's going to come up. His name is Zane Homsi. Please welcome Zane Homsi.
Good afternoon. Good, the sound works. So my name is Zane Homsi, and I started my Flint Hill journey 13 years ago, and all along the way I've learned a number of things, one of which tying my own shoes, zipping my own zippers, how to find the integral of a function given to x values, and tons of stuff all along the way. But this year I'm a senior. Now that means a few things. That means the Common Application is my most visited website, and it trumps Facebook and Twitter by a mile. It means that the College Board probably knows more about what I want to do with my life than my family. And it means that my room is covered in the shavings of number 2 pencils passed from the SAT and Scantrons over the weekend. But the stresses of high school aside, I've really come to love Flint Hill and love learning, and I really enjoy it on the daily. But there are a number of kids all over that don't feel the same way about schooling. And it wasn't until I enrolled in AP European History my sophomore year that I realized why. Now this course covers 564 years of information on society, on the economic situations of Europe, the religious conflicts, and so on. And it's a lot of information to process. And my teacher at the time, Miss Deborah Ayers, told me that if I tried to memorize every fact in isolation, that I would have the worst time in the world. I would resent the class, I would do poorly in it, and I would really end up being discouraged to challenging myself the rest of high school. And she told me that nothing exists in a vacuum. And she told me that I should try and think of history as more of a story as opposed to a 2-column note sheet, as it were. And I know she meant this in the context of the classroom, but I interpreted it in the context of my life. And that said, if nothing exists in a vacuum, then neither should the disciplines of school. Which makes sense if you think about it, because the similarities between your science and math classes are too obvious to ignore. And the similarities between English and history curriculum are also too obvious to ignore. And when you need to explain the way you feel or think about something in the science or math courses, you're using the skills you learn in your English and history classes about developing a logical opinion and working through different steps of a problem, which then shows that each discipline is actually the same face of something greater. And for me, that was learning. That also means that the idea that, oh, I'm just bad at math doesn't constitute throwing in the towel anymore. And that means that even if I am a humanities guy myself, that I am happily struggling through AP Calculus right now and AP Physics, and the thought process I'm going about to process the amount of information in those classes is really what's growing me as a person and growing me as a learner, and I really think I am better because of it. Now 13 years down the road, and that will hopefully be me a second time in June if I make it all the way there, I've learned a couple things, and the biggest thing that I've taken away from high school is that I found that the curriculum is simply the vehicle in which I have been taught how to think and how to learn, because the information can come and go and I can relearn the facts as needed. But it's again, the thought process and the person I've become, having taken difficult classes along the way, that have really grown me in that way. And it's when teachers teach students that we grow, and it's when teachers grow us as people and grow our character. It's when teachers enrich their students. And that's the big thing, I think, is the distinguishing factor between independent schooling and the public school education, is that at independent schools, teachers really acknowledge the difference between the two. because I can read something and simply say what has already been said, or I can describe something in great detail, but that's very surface level learning. And it's the enriched students that can see a single thread of information and notice the whole fabric at the same time. And it's when students come out as not textbooks with legs, but as people with minds that really come out of that. And that said, while your students may not thank you in the system, they will be ever grateful. And you really have changed me as a person over these past 13 years and have changed your students as well. And on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. Thank you.